Hey guys, want to cover a couple of misconceptions I'm seeing amongst unrepresented home buyers or house hunters out there as I'm hosting open houses, as I'm talking to potential buyers, trying to develop a better understanding of their experience in the market, how they've found our listings, and their experience so far looking for a home. So wanted to cover a couple things here. We got interest rates ticking down. I'm seeing more activity in the market, more buyers and sellers out there, more properties starting to trade hands. And it looks like we're coming out of a little bit of a recession here. Slow summer, but starting to see a little bit more activity out there in the market. But that said, I run into a lot of buyers at these open houses. I try to dig in, develop a better understanding of where they're coming from, how they found our listings, what they are looking to do, what their goals are when they want to buy. And I end up uncovering a few misconceptions. So I wanted to share a few of those misconceptions here in this video and start off by, saying, first of all, if you choose not to use a real estate agent in helping you find a home, win a home, and get through the transaction process, totally support your decision to do that. But what I'm seeing is a lot of people seem to be doing that for the wrong reasons. So wanted to share a few of those reasons, starting with number one, people don't really think they're ready to engage an agent yet. So they're not really familiar with the neighborhoods enough or the market enough to really sit down, have a conversation about what agent they want to work with. They're sort of just feeling out homes, different types of homes, different neighborhoods, and trying to develop an understanding of what's going to work for them. Now, this is totally fine, and I support people doing this. You should absolutely be going and investigating neighborhoods, driving around, popping into open houses. But what I think a lot of people are missing is that you can engage an agent to actually help facilitate this process. Like, buyer's agents are not just there to wait for you to find a home, write up an offer, and facilitate the rest of the transactions. They are there to help you develop a better understanding of neighborhoods, homes, what is happening in the market. They can create a lot more insight than just like the Zillow listings out there. If you're just looking at what homes are listed for, these agents can help you develop a better understanding of what homes are actually trading for or are likely to trade for. They're having conversations every single day with other agents in the market, so they know how competitive different listings have been out there, and they just basically can overall develop a better understanding for their buyers what is happening in the market and create a little bit more efficiency behind the home search process. So even if you're not ready to buy this year or even in the next 18 months, I think it still makes sense to engage an agent, or at least sit down and interview a couple of agents and see how their process of working with home buyers goes. You'll find out pretty quickly that not many agents actually have a process for working with home buyers, but I think it's really important to sit down and try to partner with someone that can paint a clearer picture of the market, give you a better understanding of what's going on out there, and be a partner throughout the home search and then throughout the transaction. So they'll help you find a home, figure out which one's going to work for your goals, which ones aren't, and get you through the transaction process. So engage an agent as early as you can. If you're starting to go to open houses, I think even then it makes sense to just sit down with someone or a number of people, start interviewing these people, and figuring out which one's going to be a great partner for you as you go through the home search process. The second misconception I'm seeing happening pretty frequently out there is, and this is based on my conversations with other listing agents, hosting open houses myself, and talking to a lot of the buyers out there, many of whom are unrepresented, and just trying to uncover, how they found out about the listing, how their home search experience has been so far. And what I wind up finding out is a lot of these people actually think they're putting themselves an advantage by not working with a buyer's agent because they feel that their offer is more likely to get accepted if there's not a second agent's commissions being paid out of the proceeds of the home sale, which makes sense on the surface. But really what's happening is the listing agents are essentially charging the seller for the marketing, the photography, the staging, the digital advertising. There's a number of costs associated with listing a property. The listing agent is charging for those things. And there's another line item on the contract that says what they are going to charge if there is no buyer's agent involved. So what's happening then is essentially the listing agent knows that they're going to be on the hook for covering all of the responsibilities of the buyer's agent getting the buyer through the course of the transaction. So they're having to facilitate all those things. They're not just going to do all of that extra work for free. So they're just charging what a buyer's agent would charge. And they're just, again, it's coming out of the proceeds of the home sale. So you're usually not saving the seller a dime by not working with a buyer's agent, because the listing agent is just going to charge the seller additionally on top of their listing fees for facilitating the transaction on behalf of the buyer. So that's the second misconception I'm seeing happen quite frequently out there. People think they have like a cheat code because they're not working with a real estate agent. What's really happening is the listing agent's just going to make twice as much on the sale, and they're going to have to babysit the buyer through the transaction process. So now you might be thinking, okay, well, at least the listing agent's going to make more money, so they're more likely to push the seller to accept my offer because it's in the real estate agent's best interest to accept the offer that they're going to make the most money on. Well, what happens in this situation is, and again, there's like 20% of the agents out there doing 80% of the transactions. And these agents are building relationships with their clients. They are not the sort of self-serving agents that I think a lot of inexperienced buyers or people that are just inexperienced about transacting in real estate assume that they are. So there's a lot of great agents out there that are very honest, and those people aren't going to push their sellers to accept an offer that's not in the best interest of the seller. It's just not going to happen. You might see it from time to time, like a transactional agent or one that's part-time, not very experienced, sees a very quick way to make a quick buck, and they decide to push their seller to accept an offer that's not necessarily best for the seller, but it's best for the agent. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, because I'm sure it does, but the majority of the time, the people that are out there actually getting listings in this low inventory market, the ones that have survived the last 5 years of sort of chaos, are ones that have built honest relationships with their clients. They're not just these sort of part-time self-serving agents. So just keep that in mind as you're moving forward and you think the listing agent's going to be out there pushing their seller to accept something that's just going to be better for the agent. The other thing that is very important to remember here is how listing agents view buyers who are coming to the table without using a real estate agent. And a lot of real estate agents out there don't transact every day. There's a lot of sort of inexperienced part-time agents that the more experienced agents have to work with every day. And they don't even like working with the inexperienced agents on transactions, because they know it can get a little bit bumpy over the course of the transaction when they don't have an experienced agent setting expectations for their clients. Now in this situation where a buyer is coming to the table completely unrepresented, now the listing agent is saying, great, now I have someone that thinks they know how real estate transactions work. They don't have anyone setting proper expectations for them in the current market. There's been a million different industry changes, new regulations, new documents we have to get signed that part-time agents aren't even catching up with, never mind buyers who haven't bought a home in the last 5 years. So now the listing agent's looking at these unrepresented buyers and thinking, this person has no one setting expectations for them. The likelihood that this transaction is going to stay together is a lot lower when the buyer does not have an agent that's walking them through and setting expectations every step through the transaction, whether it's in the offer stage, the due diligence stage, or beyond, all the way up to the mortgage commitment date and to the closing. So it's very likely that the listing agent is going to hesitate to accept an offer from an unrepresented buyer if they're looking at an equal offer from an agent who is properly setting expectations, especially if it's one that they've worked with in the market before, or one that they have heard about or have worked alongside or have seen out there at showings, open houses, tours. They know that they are an active agent in the market. They're much more likely to go to their seller client and say, look, I know this agent, they have their stuff together. I feel like they're going to be a good transaction partner. I feel like this is more likely to get to the closing table than this other one coming from an unrepresented buyer, even if that one from an unrepresented buyer has a higher dollar amount on the offer price. They know that, the likelihood of that transaction actually getting to the closing table is just less likely. So they're going to guide their seller to accept the offer that's more likely to get the seller to their goals. And their goals usually include getting to the closing table. So just keep that in mind as you're walking into open houses, and especially if you feel like you have an edge by not working with an agent. It's not always the case. Again, occasionally, this isn't 100% of the time. Maybe you are giving yourself an advantage, but I just want to give you some insight as far as what listing agents are thinking when they see a buyer come to the table without an agent. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of additional information. Again, if you choose not to use an agent in this market, definitely support your decision to do that. Just make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. And if you have any questions about searching for a home, a condo in the greater Boston area, feel free to get in touch with our team, even if it's just to sit down and have a conversation, understand how we handle our buyers process, and get them into a home, help them to understand the market, win a home, get through the transaction, and beyond. So we're relationship people. If you are interested in working with someone that is relationship oriented, feel free to get in touch with us. We're happy to sit down, just have a conversation with you, figure out what your goals are, and see if we can get you there. All right. Well, thank you for watching the video. Appreciate your time, and see you in the next one.